Amid the continuing standoff between India and China at the line of actual control, high-level military talks will take place between the two countries tomorrow. Now, what are these talks? What can we expect from them? And what is the current situation is what we're going to find out in this episode of Government Matters. I have with me Snehesh Alex Philip, who, as you know, tracks defense for ThePrint. Do send in your questions. As we said, we are live. Snehesh, so what are these talks tomorrow? Which side will be represented by whom?
Well, tomorrow what's happening are the military level, the Lieutenant General level talks that are going to take place. Now, this is a very rare kind of talks because in the past, the entire effort has, whenever such escalation has happened, the entire effort has been that it should be, talks would be held at a lower level. And when I mean at a lower level is, it starts from the battalion commander, that is the CO level, and then it goes up to the brigade level, and finally the div commander level. Now, this time on Saturday, remember that over this particular standoff that is happening at the Sino-India border, the line of actual control, there have been several rounds of talks that have taken place at all these levels.
Right.
And however, there has not been any concrete outcome. Now, while the military talks are being held, diplomatic parleys are also being held separately. But despite all the effort, there has not been any concrete outcome of these talks, and hence it was felt that the talks now need to be held at a much higher,
needs to be escalated.
So the Indian side would be represented by Lieutenant General Harendra Singh, who is the 14 Corps commander, and his counterpart, who is part of the Western Theatre, but not the Western Theatre commander, but the South Xinjiang military commander is likely to be present at this meeting.
Right. So what can we expect? Can we expect some kind of a resolution, some kind of a de-escalation of what's happening at the LAC?
Well, everybody is aiming at, from the Indian side, everybody is aiming for a de-escalation to take place. As we in ThePrint have reported earlier, that one of the primary demand of the Indian side is the restoration of the status quo as it was before the 1st of April. 1st of May. And so that is the primary objective of the Indian side. The Chinese, during the earlier talks that were held at the Div Commander Brigade and other levels, the Chinese have demanded, stoppage of Indian construction activities near the LAC. India has already made it very clear that the construction activities will actually continue. Now, these are construction activities which are taking place well within the Indian territory.
Right.
So the same, the Chinese have done their own road construction activities and other infrastructure projects on their side of the LAC, and India can't really object to that.
Right.
Same way, Chinese shouldn't be objecting to a legitimate action being undertaken within the Indian territory.
So, Snehesh, what is the current status of the standoff? Has it remained the same throughout? Has it escalated? What's happening now?
Well, there has, as we've reported in ThePrint earlier again, there haven't been an escalation of the situation since about 19th or 20th of May. However, the standoff continues. There is indeed a large number of troop deployment that has taken place on the Chinese LAC. There are transgressions that have taken place in at least 4 areas, including the Finger area in Pangong Lake. However, so the build-up remains the same. India has also gone ahead and did what it terms as mirror deployment. Actually, in the real fact is that it has done more than mirror deployment. So additional troops have been brought in, and when I say additional troops, this also means elements of the artillery and mechanized columns that have been brought to Ladakh.
Right.
So the build-up remains. There is no, but however, there is no escalation per se since about
19th or
20th of May.
Right. So we have a viewer question. This is from Musafir on Twitter. China won't vacate the encroached territory through peaceful means. Does India have the responsibility or the capability to forcefully regain its territory?
Well, as far as if you're asking from a purely military point of view, India does, in the sense as I earlier mentioned, the Indian side is completely equipped and it has enough men and material in Ladakh to take care of any possible situation that might emerge, let's say tomorrow or maybe later. However, if you're again asking me directly whether does India have the ability to push back the Chinese, I would say yes, India has the ability to push back the Chinese. When it comes to an army to army or purely a soldier to soldier kind of a battle, India does have the numbers and the experience to do it. However, what matters in India when you compare, for example, let's say the Air Force also, the Indian Air Force has a much better maneuverability and operational ability in these high areas of Ladakh. Remember, because whereas in comparison to China, they have the airfields much deeper, and hence it is difficult. However, the Chinese air defense systems, the Chinese missiles are something which is different. But this again, all this discussion is completely hypothetical.
Right, and nobody is here for warmongering in any case.
I've spoken to enough people in the army here. India is, as we have reported earlier, the entire focus is to find amicable solution through talks. Right. If you would have seen the statements that have come out from the Chinese, the ambassador here, as well as from the Chinese Foreign Ministry, both have spoken about resolving differences through talks. And this is not the first time that China has really, come in. Right. It's a different thing that the scale of this is much larger than before. There's a bigger true build-up. But then eventually, so the face-offs between India and China have also taken place in Doklam, which is in Tibetan Plateau.
Which also lasted for 3 months nearly?
Which lasted for about 73 days. So it was a long one, and eventually Chinese did withdraw back to a particular point, and India achieved what it wanted to achieve, which was stop the Chinese from constructing a strategic road through a particular area.
Right. This is another question. Why hasn't the government suspended trade ties with China yet?
Well, China, the trade ties with China yet, because while many would want a trade ban on with China,
particularly after the COVID episode.
Well, the government is smart enough not to do anything of that sort.
With them, so
and plus, we are not at war with them. This is, we've been collaborating with China on various other fronts. The talks are happening on both sides. So this, this call for ban of Chinese goods and call for trade talks and all is something which is more limited to the social media and among discussions in rooms.
That's not how diplomacy quite works.
And that's not how governance also works.
Kritika K, is China just trying to intimidate India?
Well, there are a number of reasons why China is really doing this, and it's difficult to pinpoint exactly what is the reason. But so to give you a perspective, there have been a large number of border roads construction that has been taking place. China has been objecting to it. Why China has been objecting to it is that because it feels that once these road construction activity, which is close to the LAC, is completed, the tactical edge that China has over India along the LAC in terms of troop movement would be lost, and hence China has been objecting to the road construction activities in the Finger area, along the LAC in multiple areas, including near the Galwan Valley. This related to a feeder road that was being built as far as the DBO, the main DBO road is concerned. Now, to give an example, there are areas where the Chinese can actually drive in, points where Chinese can actually drive in because they have made proper roads. So the Chinese probably take 15 minutes from where they are to reach a particular point. The same distance, the Indians take about 2.5 hours to reach by foot. So once these roads, which was started many years ago but has gathered pace now, once these roads are completed, as I said earlier, the tactical advantage of China in this particular area goes away. Right. The other, yes, there are many experts who have spoken about, why did China really do this? Right. There's a lot of internal messaging as well as external messaging that is on. In terms of internal messaging, remember that when the Chinese President Xi Jinping took over in 2012, he was very powerful. He was a very powerful man, and he has he had a huge control in over China. However, since this COVID crisis, since a number of policies that we've taken in the recent past, and since the COVID crisis, the way it was handled, there are a lot of murmurs. There are a lot of people who've actually come out against, come out with comments against
right.
President
So there's a
Xi
backlash
Jinping.
both domestically and
So
internationally.
there's a backlash domestically. There's a backlash, internationally. And viewers, yesterday we conducted an interview with, Jayadeva Ranade sir, who's an expert on Chinese issues, and he's spoken at length about the reasons why China probably has done
So you may
this.
want to log on to our YouTube channel and find that link. In fact, we'll try and post it as a comment to this video, and I'm sure you'll enjoy watching that. Krish Vikram on Twitter, currently at how many points is the standoff on?
Well, as I said, the standoff is happening across the LOC at number of places. The troop buildup is not just limited to the Ladakh side. The Indians, as a proactive measurement, has also gone ahead and moved. I've taken defensive deployment in number of areas in the central sector as well as the eastern sector to ensure that really, China is not able to make any other kind of a move. However, the face-off is at number of locations. Transgressions have happened in at least about 4 locations.
So we are actually, as we speak, our back-end team is already adding the link to Mr. Ranade's interview. So you'll see it in the comment section within a few seconds. Do click on it. There's a question from Vineet Ambat. Do you think this China issue would be or should be resolved by pure diplomacy? So would be. Let's stick to the would be.
Well, of course, eventually things have been settled through talks. And here, as I said earlier before, both India and China have made it absolutely clear that, while yes, the troop buildup and the military moves are all there, there are military talks that have been held as well as diplomatic talks. And in India is very clear that they are trying to work on an amicable solution through talks. And the statements made by the Chinese, the foreign ministry, as well as by the Chinese envoy in India, also indicates and suggests that the Chinese also want
an amicable
solution through talks.
Right. Sumonto Kakoti, do you think hydroelectric dams in the international border with China is a major security concern for India? The Royal Air Force had bombed the German dam to get tactical advantage in the past.
Well, there is no doubt about the fact, Sumanti, that and that is the reason why India, Chinese also object to certain Indian construction activities. Now, dams are, critical infrastructure that is there. And however, India can't really object to any construction activity that is happening on the Chinese territory. But yes, if the dams do, the objection comes only when there's a fear or when the dams actually stop the flow of the particular water into Indian territory. That's where the problem lies.
Right.
Otherwise, dams per se, while yes, it is a significant infrastructure, but per se, there are no issues until and then it is made to divert water or stop India getting access to the waters.
Shiva Prasad, where is the ammunition required by the Indian Army?